Chapter_title, The Furrow and the Cozy Screen. Content, Kael woke to the taste of iron and a sky the color of a bruise. For a long moment he lay still, listening to the wet silence. The rain had stopped, but the ground had not forgiven him. Black mud cupped his shoulders and thighs, cold as a creditor's hand. His left horn was chipped above the brow, a jagged edge he could feel when he moved his jaw. His right gauntlet was gone. Somewhere beneath the cracked breastplate, a rib shifted with each shallow breath, /n, he turned his head and spat mud. The action cost him. Light swam, /n, the salient. The salient had fallen. Again, /n, he remembered the demon lord's voice in the war room, rich with contempt. Kael, you will hold the eastern salient with what remains of your legion. Consider it an honor. Should you fail, your death will serve as an excellent motivational example for the next general. /n, Kael had held. For 6 hours, he had held while the hero's golden vanguard carved through his flank and the pike splintered and the standard-bearer vanished in a sheet of white flame. Then the retreat, no, the rout, had carried him into the marshlands. He had run until his legs gave out. He had crawled into this ditch. He was, he realized, still alive. The knowledge felt less like luck and more like a clerical error, /n, he pushed himself onto one elbow. The wet reeds rustled. His hand closed on something hard and rectangular buried in the silt, a dead merchant's satchel, its strap still looped around a pale forearm half sunk in the reeds. Kael tugged the satchel free with the detached strength of a man who had looted his own dead 100 times. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was a flat black mirror. It was worn to the touch, /n, the screen brightened. A smiling turnip spun on a field of soft green. Beneath it, in rounded letters, glowed the words, Cozy Realm, /n, Kael almost laughed. A wet, broken sound. A farming game. He was bleeding into a ditch, his legion was ash, and the universe had given him a farming game. He tried to drop it, but the screen held his gaze. The turnip's little face was so obscenely cheerful. He tapped it, /n, the screen opened onto a top-down view of a brown and grey tract of land. In elegant script, the banner read, Cragmire March. Kael felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mud. That was his territory. The territory the demon lord had given him after the last failure. The map showed the black smear of the marsh, the broken line of the old watchtower, the field where the camp had been. A pulsing red icon near the watchtower bore a label, Monster Spawner, Demon Garrison. /n, Knee's thumb moved before he could think. A small tutorial bubble popped up, Clear Monster Spawner to increase coziness. The icon was a jagged boulder. He dragged it into a glowing basket. The phone chimed. A soft, pleasant sound, /n, somewhere far across the moor, a warhorn began to blow. It rose, urgent, then stopped, cut off as if a hand had closed around it. Kael's collarbone burned. The demon lord's brand, seared into his skin when he had been forced into the legion, flared once and went cold. The silence afterward was deeper than before. Deeper than any silence he had heard in years, /n, he stared at the phone. The screen now showed a small checkmark and the words, Monster Spawner removed. Threat reduced. /n, Kael's hands were shaking. Blood loss, he told himself. Concussion. The rain had stopped, but the cold had sunk into his bones. He should be dead. His mind was inventing comfort, /n, but the screen was still there. And the button beneath the map now read, Upgrade Farmland. /n, Knee's thumb hovered. This was absurd. He was a demon general, a mid-level one, yes, worn down to the marrow, but still a general. He did not play farming simulators in ditches while his enemies counted his dead. But the icon showed a patch of grey earth and a little seed. He tapped it, /n, new window opened. Choose crop. There were 4 options, turnips, carrots, pumpkins, and something called gloomroot. Kael selected turnips without hesitation. Turnips, at least, had never asked him to hold a salient, /n, and the phone vibrated. A soft chime. On the screen, the grey field turned a dark, rich brown. Tiny green sprouts pushed through the soil in neat rows. The little farmer walked from tile to tile, watering them with a tin can, /n, the real world, the cold mud around Kael. Kael's ribs screamed as he dragged himself deeper into the ravine. Black ichor, thick as tar, oozed from the gash beneath his left pauldron, and every breath tasted of copper and smoke. His right horn, once proud and swept back like a war scythe, had cracked near the base during the ambush. The fracture ached with a dull, endless pulse. The hero had not even slowed down to finish him. That was the worst part. She had cut through his escort, scattered the survivors into the thornwood, and vanished up the ridge as if he were not worth the extra sword stroke. Kael let his head fall back against a slab of cold limestone. Above him, the sky was the color of a bruise. The demon marches would not send a rescue party. The demon lord did not rescue. The demon lord punished. Losses were tolerated only when the survivors brought back victory. Kael had brought back nothing but broken armor and a body that refused to stop bleeding. In his clawed hand, the old smartphone glowed faintly. He had found it half buried in the black mud near the river, its screen impossibly clean. No demon army used such devices. The human kingdoms had their enchanted mirrors and signal pyres. This thing was different. It hummed against his palm like a living insect, and when he had tapped the bright green icon, the words Cozy Realm had unfurled across the glass. A game. At first, he had almost laughed. Then the pain had made him whimper instead. Now, with his back against the stone and his legs refusing to hold him, the game seemed like the only thing in the world that did not want him dead. The screen brightened. A cheerful little farm appeared, rendered in soft greens and warm browns. In the center stood a tiny patch of rocks. A text box popped up. Clear the rocks to make room for your farm. Kael's thumb hovered. His claws were too thick for the screen, so he used the edge of his gauntlet. The screen registered the touch with a soft chime. The rocks on the little farm shattered into sparkling dust. The app rewarded him with 5 cozy points and a new message. Monster spawner cleared. Beneath him, the earth groaned. Kael froze. The stone slab behind his back shivered, then settled. Far to the north, beyond the ravine's lip, a sound like a thunderclap rolled across the moor. He smelled ozone, sharp and clean, as if lightning had struck something vast and old. Then the wind died. The thornwood became silent. Kael stared at the phone. The game's screen showed a happy sun. He waited, but nothing else happened. He told himself the sound had been the hero's retreating magic, or a landslide, or his own dying brain misfiring. The phone chimed again. Great job. Your farm is safer. He almost turned it off. His thumb moved toward the power button, but another prompt appeared. Upgrade farmland to grow turnips. Turnips. The word struck him like a blade. He had not tasted a turnip in 7 years. The demon lord's cook served only blood sausage, charred worm flesh, and wine sharpened with powdered obsidian. Turnips had been his grandmother's food, boiled until soft, salted with tears from the salt flats, served in a clay bowl beside the hearth. He had been a boy then, before the conscription, before the horns grew thick and the world taught him to kill. His thumb tapped the upgrade button. The ravine changed. It did not happen suddenly. First came the smell, wet soil, rich and dark, rising from the ground like a ghost. Then the cracked clay beneath Kael's legs turned soft. He looked down. Gray dust, which had been there a moment before, was gone. In its place lay black earth, faintly steaming in the cold air. Tiny green shoots pushed through the surface, then unfurled into broad, familiar leaves. Turnip tops. A whole row of them stretched along the ravine floor, their roots bulging just beneath the soil. Kael's breath caught. He reached out, snapped off a leaf, and chewed. Bitter. Real. The juice stung his cracked lips. He dug with his fingers, dislodged a small turnip, and bit into it. The taste was raw and peppery, but his body welcomed it like water. Strength returned to his limbs in a warm rush, not magical healing, just food after so long without. He looked at the phone again. The game showed a lush field of turnips. He had not imagined it. The screen was showing him the ravine. No, not the ravine. His territory. The app was showing him his territory, but softer, cleaner, as if the world had been redrawn in pastels. A third prompt appeared. Build a cozy house to rest. Kael's hands trembled. This was not a stress relief game. This was something else. But the pain in his side was fading to a dull ache, and the turnip had given him enough warmth to think. He could not stay in the open. The hero would return. The demon lord's scouts would come to drag him back for punishment. If the app could make shelter, even a small one, he might survive the night. He selected the cottage icon and dragged it over the game's little patch of land. The screen asked him to confirm. He tapped yes. The world rippled. In the distance, where the black outline of his border fortress had loomed against the clouds, the spiked towers simply folded. They did not collapse. They became timber-framed walls, low roofs of thatch, windows with yellow light spilling out. The iron gate, forged from the ribs of a dead titan, remade itself into a wooden archway covered in climbing roses. The execution yard, where he had once watched 3 deserters flayed, became a small garden with a stone well. The fortress of Greywatch was gone. Kael stared. His mind refused to accept it. He tried to stand, then fell to one knee. The turnips rustled around him. A horn sounded from the tree-line. Demon horn. 3 short blasts. A death squad. Kael's blood went cold. He knew that call. It belonged to Sergeant Vesic, a thick-necked demon with scarred knuckles and a special talent for making prisoners scream. Vesic had been assigned to border enforcement, which meant if Kael was found, there would be no trial, only a public example. Bootsteps crashed through the underbrush. Kael pressed himself into the turnip rows. Through the leaves, he saw them, Vesic and his scout, Oren, both in black plate, both carrying curved serrated blades. They stopped at the edge of the transformed hamlet. Vesic lowered his weapon. What in the 9 hells is this? Oren pointed toward the rose-covered arch that was Greywatch. I swear on my mother's ashes. It is a trick, Vesic snarled. The hero's witch magic. Or the general's treachery. His yellow eyes swept the field. Kael. I smell your cowardice. Show yourself. The phone in Kael's hand blazed with light. A new prompt appeared. A monster spawner is threatening your farm. Clear it. He looked at the screen, then at Vesic. The app's clearing function had erased rocks before. But these were not rocks. These were living demons. His own kind. A part of him wanted to run, to surrender, to beg. But Vesic would not accept surrender. Vesic would drag him back to the Demon Lord, and the Demon Lord would peel the flesh from his bones one layer at a time. The app chimed again, insistent. Kael's thumb moved before his mind could stop it. Clear it. The world did not shake. The thunder did not roll. Instead, the ground beneath Vesic and Oren softened into dark soil. Thick green shoots erupted around their boots. Vesic's eyes widened. He tried to raise his blade, but the turnip roots wrapped around his ankles like ropes. Oren screamed. The sound was swallowed by the rustling of leaves. Within seconds, the 2 demons sank into the earth, not violently, but the way stones sink into deep water. The turnips grew over the place where they had stood. Silence. The app displayed a cheerful confirmation. Monster spawner cleared. Your farm is cozier. Kael stared at the empty field. His heart hammered. He could still see the shape of Vesic's footprints in the soil, already filling with tiny roots. He had killed them. Or erased them. Or turned them into fertilizer. The distinction did not matter. He was a murderer. He had used the game. But he was alive. A new sound reached him, the slow, deliberate crunch of boots on gravel. Not demon boots. These were lighter, steadier. A figure appeared on the road at the edge of the hamlet. Silver armor gleamed under the bruise-colored sky. A white cloak, spotless despite the long march. One hand rested on the hilt of an enormous sword. The hero had arrived. She stopped at the wooden archway. Her head tilted as she studied the rose-covered gate, the smoking chimneys, the vegetable gardens. Her mouth pressed into a hard line. Then her gaze swept across the turnip field and found Kael, still on his knees, still clutching the glowing phone. The hero drew her sword. The blade sang in the quiet air. Demon, she said, her voice carrying across the field. What have you done to this village? Chapter_title, A Cottage Between Enemies, Content. The silence that followed the last chime was not peaceful, it was the taut quiet of a bowstring. Kael / U2019's ears rang. The turnip field beneath his boots steamed faintly in the morning light, and the smell of fresh loam mixed with the copper taste of his own blood. He pressed a hand to the wound in his side and felt something stitched by panic, / and the hero stood 20 paces away at the end of the new lane, her sword already drawn, its edge catching the sun like a promise, / and U201C demon, / U201D she said. The word was flat and sharp. U201C. What did you do? Where is the fortress? Where are the soldiers? U201D N. Kael opened his mouth. His voice came out hoarse. U201C I Don U2019 T U2014 U201D N. She advanced. Her silvered boots crushed young turnip leaves. With each step, she scanned the hamlet, the thatched roofs, the window boxes, the neat furrows. Her jaw tightened. None of it matched the border fortress of Greywatch. N U201C. Your kind does not farm. U201D. She said. U201C. You raise pits. You build black towers. You do not plant turnips. U201D N. Kael lifted the phone. The screen flickered, showing the same impossible map of the hamlet. Green icons pulsed over the cottages. A small golden wheat icon marked the upgraded fields. In the corner, a red marker shaped like a sword was moving closer to the center. N. He swallowed. U201C. This ISN U2019 T U2014 It U2019 S an app. It U2019 S called Cozy Realm. I thought it was a game. U201D N. The hero U2019 S blade hummed, as if in answer. U201C. You erased 2 of your own soldiers. The phone vibrated in Kael's hand, a soft, pleasant chime that felt obscenely out of place against the hammer of hooves pounding down the old trade road. He pressed his back against the rough stone of the well, his breath shallow, his heart slamming against his ribs like a caged goblin. The sun hung low over his former fortress, except it wasn't a fortress anymore. The black basalt walls he had spent years maintaining were gone. In their place stood a ring of low cottages with thatched roofs and window boxes spilling over with white and yellow wildflowers. The killing fields outside the gate had been replaced by neat rows of turnips, their green tops trembling in the evening breeze. The air smelled of fresh hay and wood smoke, not sulfur and old blood. Kael stared at the screen of the strange phone. The app called Cozy Realm glowed with soft pastel colors. A little map of the territory filled the screen, rendered in the cheerful style of a farming game. Icons dotted the landscape, a small rock, a sprouting plant, a cozy house. And moving slowly along the road from the south, a single red dot. The hero. He had watched that red dot grow closer for the last 10 minutes, torn between disbelief and panic. At first he thought the app was just a stress relief game, something to calm his nerves after the ambush, after the demon lord's latest tantrum. He had tapped a rock icon labeled Clear Monster Spawner and felt a strange pulse ripple through the ground. Then a legion of his own soldiers had simply ceased to exist. At least, that's what he guessed had happened. One moment the courtyard was full of snarling imps and hulking brutes preparing to march, the next, the entire western barracks was a field of wildflowers with a quaint sign reading, Turnip Patch No. 3. Now the hero was here, and Kael had no sword, no armor, and no plan. Just a phone. He risked a glance around the well's edge. The hero rode a massive white stallion, its barding gleaming with silver and gold. The man himself was every bit as terrifying as the legend said, broad-shouldered, clad in polished plate armor that reflected the dying sun like a mirror, a massive greatsword strapped across his back. His helmet was tucked under one arm, revealing a chiseled jaw and close-cropped blonde hair. His eyes, however, were colder than any demon's. They swept over the peaceful hamlet with naked suspicion. "What sorcery is this?" the hero muttered, his voice carrying across the quiet village square. He reined in his horse, which snorted and pawed at the cobblestones that had been cracked and blackened stone only an hour ago. "I followed the stench of demon filth for 3 days. Now I find a garden." Kael's fingers tightened around the phone. The screen showed a small tutorial prompt, tip, keeping your villagers cozy increases happiness. Try building a cozy house near your fields. A little arrow pointed to an empty plot of land directly between Kael and the hero. Oh no. The hero's gaze locked onto the well. Kael tried to shrink into the shadows, but his horns, the 2 curved black horns that marked him as a mid-level demon general, caught the light. The hero's eyes narrowed. His lips peeled back in a snarl. "There you are, demon," the hero said. He dismounted with a single fluid motion, drawing his great sword. The blade hummed with holy energy, a pale white glow that made the flowers nearest him wilt. "I don't know what illusion you've woven, but it ends now. I'll purify this land with your blood." Kael stumbled backward, nearly dropping the phone. Wait. This isn't, I didn't. The hero charged. Instinct took over. Kael's thumb stabbed at the screen. He didn't aim, didn't think. He just tapped the little house icon and dragged it toward the largest empty spot he could see, which happened to be exactly where the hero was running. The effect was immediate and absolute. There was no flash of light, no thunderous boom. The world simply rearranged itself. Wooden beams rose from the earth like sprouting mushrooms. Thatch wove itself into a roof with the soft rustle of dried grass. A door swung open with a cheerful creak. A chimney puffed a single, contented wisp of smoke. Within the span of 2 heartbeats, a cozy little cottage stood exactly where the hero had been mid-swing. The hero's greatsword clanged against the inside of a wooden wall. There was a muffled shout, a thud, and then a crash as something heavy, possibly the hero himself, knocked over a piece of furniture. Kael stared. His thumb hovered over the screen, trembling. The app showed a new notification, cozy house placed. Villager happiness +5. Inside the cottage, the hero was making an alarming amount of noise. Holy light flickered through the gaps between the logs, casting strange shadows across the garden. The door rattled, but it did not open. Demon. The hero's voice was muffled but no less furious. Release me from this adorable prison. I will smite you. I will scatter your ashes across the 9 hells. Kael lowered the phone, his legs suddenly weak. He sank onto the edge of the well, the stone cool against his back. His mind reeled. The app wasn't a game. It wasn't a stress relief toy. It was a divine console, a tool that rewrote the very fabric of reality. And somehow, it had chosen him. He looked at the map on the screen. The red dot representing the hero was now blinking inside a small house icon. A label appeared beneath it, occupant, very angry hero, trapped. Kael almost laughed. Almost. The absurdity of it, the hero of legend, trapped inside a quaint cottage that smelled of lavender and fresh bread, was too much for his exhausted mind. But the laughter died in his throat when he noticed movement at the top of the screen. 3 new red dots were approaching from the north. They moved fast, cutting across the turnip fields with the precision of military scouts. Kael's blood ran cold. He recognized the signature of those dots, the demon lord's elite hunters. The ones who were sent when a general went rogue. The ones who never failed. His thumb hovered over the rock icon. The label under it read, Clear Monster Spawner. The same icon he had tapped by accident earlier, erasing an entire legion. If he tapped it now, aimed at those approaching elite soldiers, would they vanish too? Or would he accidentally erase half the countryside? The cottage behind him shuddered. A crack split the door, and holy light spilled through like a blade. The hero was breaking free. Kael's gaze darted between the screen and the approaching dots. The demon lord's elites would be here in minutes. The hero would break out in seconds. Both wanted him dead. Both saw him as a threat to be eliminated. But the app. The app saw him as a farmer. He took a deep breath, tasting wood smoke and turnip greens. His thumb moved to the rock icon, but then he paused. There was another icon, the sprouting plant. Upgrade farmland. What would that do to the approaching elites? Could he make the ground beneath them bloom into such lush farmland that they'd sink into the soil? Could he turn their weapons into plowshares? He had no idea. He didn't know the rules of this terrible, wonderful power. What he did know was that he couldn't keep being a mid-level general. He couldn't keep serving a demon lord who treated him like a disposable tool. He wanted turnips. He wanted peace. He wanted to sit on this well and watch the sun go down without fear of being impaled. The cottage door exploded outward. The hero stepped through the wreckage, his armor dented, his hair disheveled, and his eyes blazing with holy fire. He raised his great sword, the blade now glowing white-hot. No more games, demon. Show me your true form. Kael looked at the hero, then at the phone. The 3 red dots from the north were closer now, close enough that he could hear the distant thunder of warhorses and the shriek of bat-winged scouts. The demon lord had sent his best. True form. Kael said quietly. He raised the phone, his thumb trembling over the rock icon. I'm just a farmer. The hero lunged. Kael tapped the screen. The world went silent. Every rock, every boulder, every hidden monster spawner in a mile-wide radius shimmered and vanished. So did the 3 red dots. One moment they were there, a vanguard of demonic cavalry, their black armor gleaming, their hellhounds baying. The next, the road was empty. Only a cloud of dust and a few scattered turnip leaves marked where they had been. The hero skidded to a halt. His holy sword dimmed, then flickered. He stared at the empty road, then at the phone in Kael's hand. His face went from fury to confusion to something Kael had never seen on a hero before. Fear. What are you? The hero whispered. Kael looked down at the phone. A new notification appeared on the screen, cheerful and bright. Congratulations. You have cleared a monster spawner. Your territory is safer now. Chapter_title, The Barge and the Bloom. Content. The first thing Kael noticed was the smell, iron and ozone, then the softer green perfume of crushed turnip leaves. The hero's sword point stopped 2 fingers from Kael's throat, but the man's eyes were not on Kael. They were on the sky. /n/na portal had unstitched itself above the hamlet. It did not rip open, it unfolded like a black flower, petals of shadow peeling backward to expose a hull. The demon lord's war barge hung there, barnacled with iron plates and weeping chain. It blotted the sun. From its underbelly, grappling hooks struck the earth, one of them spearing through the neat rows of turnips and sending clods raining into the well. /n/n Kael's thumb hovered over the cozy realm screen. The app was vibrating. A red banner stuttered across the top, incoming raid, high threat. The icons pulsed. Clear monster spawner was still warm from his last tap. Upgrade farmland glowed a soft green. Build cozy house sat like a promise. /n/n You erased them, the hero said. His voice was raw. I saw you. 3 demon elite hunters, gone. You did that with that toy. He took 1 step forward, armor creaking. What are you? /n/n Kael's back scraped the well's stone. I told you. A farmer. /n/n Farmers don't make armies vanish. The hero's sword lifted, but his hand trembled. Give me the phone. Now. /n/n High above, the barge's landing ramp crashed down. It hit the edge of the turnip field, crushing a cottage that Kael had built only minutes ago. The door burst outward. From inside the war barge, a column of demon raiders poured down the ramp, black spears glinting, boots churning the soil. /n/n Kael didn't think. His thumb moved. /n/n He tapped upgrade farmland. /n/n The app chimed, a cheerful note entirely out of place beneath the war barge. Kael felt the change before he saw it, a deep, wet shift under his boots, as if the world had taken a long breath. The soil around the well began to darken, from pale dust to rich loam. Turnip leaves, which had been small and neat, exploded upward. Their green tops snapped like banners. Roots thickened underground, cracking cobblestones, curling around the grappling hooks. Vines of something flowering and white twisted up the well's wooden frame. /n/n The raiders hit the transformed field and staggered. Their feet sank to the ankles. The dark soil rose to their knees, soft as fresh-turned spring earth. Turnips swelled under them, shouldering out of the ground like round stones. One raider tripped over a cabbage head the size of a pig. Another's spear tangled in a trellis of bean vines that had not been there a breath before. /n/n The hero turned, sword half raised. What did you do? /n/n I fertilized, Kael said. /n/n A harsh laugh came from the barge. The demon lord's voice rolled down like a storm front. It did not need a speaker, it filled the sky. Kael. My tired little general. You play in the dirt while I send your replacement. How adorable. /n/n The ramp creaked. More raiders came, leaping over the buried first wave. Some had wings. Some crawled on too many legs. Kael saw the app screen flicker again. A new red marker pulsed over the barge's open gate. Monster spawner, active. /n/n The hero saw it too. He lunged, not for Kael, but for the phone. /n/n Kael twisted. The hero's gauntlet closed on empty air. Kael's thumb hit the screen. /n/n Clear monster spawner. /n/n The world went silent. /n/n Not true silence. There was wind, the rustle of leaves, the distant drip of water in the well. But the battle sound stopped. The raiders on the ramp simply came apart, not in blood, not in light, but as if they had been sketched in charcoal and someone had wiped the page. Armor clattered to the ground in neat piles. Spears stuck upright in the soil. The winged things vanished before they reached the turnip rows. The crawling things left shallow prints that filled with rainwater, /n and the hero stumbled back. His sword sank point first into a turnip. Gods, he whispered. You didn't even touch them. /n Kael looked at his thumb, then at the screen. The red marker over the barge gate had gone out. But the barge itself remained. And on its prow, a figure stepped into view, /n and the demon lord was tall, cloaked in smoke that moved against the wind. He wore no crown, he did not need one. The sky bent around him. He looked down at the hamlet, at the empty armor and the blooming fields, and for the first time Kael saw not anger but something like interest, /n, so this is what my mid-boss has become, the demon lord said. A god with a garden. I should have executed you years ago. /n Kael's heart beat hard enough to shake the phone. The hero was still beside him, sword half lifted, eyes darting between Kael and the barge, /n, give me the phone, the hero said again, but his voice had changed. It was not a demand now. It was a negotiation. Give it to me, and I will end him. I swear it. /n Kael almost laughed. You were sent to kill demons. I'm still a demon. The moment you have this, you'll erase me too. /n the hero's jaw tightened, but he did not deny it, /n and the demon lord raised one hand. Dark fire coiled along his fingers. You won't have the chance to decide. I'll burn this hamlet and your little app together, Kael. And I'll make sure that when I do, every turnip you've grown tastes like ash in your mouth. /n Kael looked down at the screen. The icons glowed, clear monster spawner. Upgrade farmland. Build cozy house, /n he had erased the raiders. He had changed the ground. But the demon lord was not a monster spawner. He was not farmland. He was a person, if such a word could hold that thing. Could he be edited? The app did not offer a delete boss button. Kael's chest tightened. He had no new power, no hidden weapon. He only had a farming app and a thumb, /n and the demon lord stepped off the barge, /n and he did not fall. The air itself rushed to meet him, forming a stare of black embers. He descended slowly, each step cracking the sky. The hero turned to face him, sword rising. Kael, now or never. Give me the phone, or we both die here. /n Kael stared at the two icons left. Build cozy house. The name was so absurd, so gentle. He remembered the first time he had tapped it, a cottage had risen from nothing, and the hero had been trapped inside. It had not killed. It had only contained, /n maybe he could contain the demon lord. Maybe he could build something around that descending figure, not to hurt, not to destroy, but to put him somewhere peaceful. Was that possible? The app had never asked him what he wanted to build. It only built what it built, /n Knee's thumb moved over the icon, /n Kael, the. Kael's hand still trembled around the phone. The screen glowed pale green, pixelated turnips nodding in a field that matched exactly the one outside his window. The fortress wall that had stood there at dawn was gone. In its place, a split-rail fence meandered through clover. A weather vane shaped like a pig turned slowly above the cottage roof. He bit the inside of his cheek until he tasted copper. Not a dream. The cozy realm app had rewritten the world again. He had only wanted to build a small shed to store tools, and it had torn down the northern bastion and left behind a stone cottage with actual lace curtains. Then a low horn blew from the tree line. 3 notes, each one a fist squeezing Kael's ribs. The demon lord's elite. Kael ducked behind the cottage's rain barrel, squeezing the phone to his chest. Peering through the mint and lemon balm, he saw them, 4 riders entering the valley on nightmare mares with smoke trickling from their hooves. At their head rode Commander Vask, a hulking demon in scorched plate armor, the left side of his face a mass of old burned scars that pulled his mouth into a permanent sneer. Kael had served under Vask for 3 years, mostly by avoiding eye contact and doing the man's paperwork. Vask did not tolerate ambiguity, and now he carried a black iron flail whose chain dripped with something that sizzled when it touched the grass. Spread out, Vask bellowed. Find the general. The Lord wants his head in a basket and that artifact crushed. Kael's stomach dropped. Artifact. They knew about the phone. The demon lord must have scryed it, felt the shift in reality. Of course he had. Nothing escaped the Black Throne's eye. Kael had been a fool to think he could hide. He risked another glance. The riders fanned through the field, their mares trampling his turnips. Each hoofprint left a smoldering black bruise in the soil. Kael felt an absurd pang of grief. Those turnips had finally begun to bulb. He had watered them himself, knelt in the dirt and sang to them one drunken night. The phone vibrated. A notification slid across the screen in cheerful rounded letters. New threat detected, Black Harvest Squadron, 4 units. Would you like to pacify this area? Below it were 2 buttons, Cozy It and Ignore. Kael's thumb hovered. The last time he had tapped Cozy It on a monster nest, an entire legion had ceased to exist, leaving behind only a stone well and a field of sunflowers. He still did not understand the rules. But he knew Vask would not stop to ask questions. Ignore, he whispered, and the notification vanished. He needed a plan that did not involve accidentally erasing the wrong thing. Vask dismounted near the split-rail fence. His flail swung lazily. General Kael, he called, voice scraping like a landslide. I know you are here. This cottage smells of you. Come out and I will make your death quick. The Lord is not known for mercy, but I can be. Kael pressed himself lower. The rain barrel was old oak, leaking a thin stream down his back. He watched a bead of water run along the phone screen, distorting the turnips. The app had opened a map overlay. 3 icons glowed, a cracked rock monster spawner at the orchard's edge, a shimmering field marked Upgrade Farmland, and the cottage he had built, labeled Cozy House. There was also a small red triangle moving across the map, Vask. No new icons. No Delete Enemy Commander button. Kael wanted to laugh. The app was not a weapon. It was a domestic tool. He had no way to fight a 400-pound elite warrior with a flail. Then he saw it. One of the riders had dismounted and was planting something into the soil near the fence, a black iron stake, carved with the Demon Lord sigil, its tip barbed. A monster spawner. The rider hammered it deep with 3 blows of an iron mallet. The ground split around it, and thin black roots slithered outward like veins under the grass. If it fully activated, it would call a swarm of shadowhounds, the same creatures that had nearly killed Kael in the ambush. The phone map updated. The cracked rock icon appeared exactly where the stake had been driven. A label hovered over it, Monster Spawner, Shadowhound Den, Unstable. Tap to clear. Kael's breath caught. There it was. Not a weapon against Vask, but against the spawner. If he cleared it, no shadowhounds. The riders might still kill him, but at least he would not be torn apart by things that ate magic. He tapped the icon. The screen showed a little rock with a cartoon crack. A prompt, Clear Monster Spawner. This will remove all hostile spawn points in a 50-pace radius. Yes. A soft chime rang out, too sweet for the moment. The phone vibrated once. Kael looked over the barrel. The black iron stake shivered. Its carved sigil flared red, then went dark. The rider who had planted it stumbled back as the stake cracked from top to bottom, splitting into a harmless pile of rust and shards. The black roots in the soil curled up, dried, and blew away as ash. The ground smoothed over as if nothing had been planted. Witchcraft, the rider shouted, drawing a serrated short sword. Vask turned. What did you do? Nothing, Commander. The stake, it will not hold. Then hold it yourself and stop wasting time. Kael allowed himself a small breath. The Shadowhound spawner was gone. But now Vask was staring directly at the cottage, and there was nowhere left to hide. The phone screen flashed again. Your farm is under attack. Upgrade farmland to strengthen the soil's blessings. Strengthen the soil. Kael had used upgrade farmland before. It had turned barren ground into dark, sweet loam. It had made crops spring up overnight. But it had never done anything violent. Still, if the soil could be blessed, perhaps it could do something to the nightmare mares, whose hooves burned the grass. Vask began to walk toward the cottage. Each step left a dark imprint. The flail chain rattled. Kael did not have time to think. He tapped Upgrade Farmland. The phone chimed again. The screen showed a pixelated farm plot being sprinkled with golden dust. Then the whole valley hummed. The turnip field rippled. The trampled green tops lifted, straightening as if waking. The soil darkened from pale brown to rich, almost black. A faint golden warmth spread outward from Kael's feet, racing through the furrows. Where the nightmare maras stood, the ground softened, then thickened, folding over their hooves like wet clay. The maras shrieked. One reared, yanking its legs free with a wet tearing sound. The other two scrambled as the earth grabbed at them, roots of turnips twining around their fetlocks. The riders struggled. Vask spun, flail raised, but the ground beneath him turned to deep, fertile mud. He sank to his ankles, then his knees. "What is this?" Vask roared. "Kael, you traitor! Face me!" Kael stepped out from behind the rain barrel, phone clutched in both hands. His legs felt like the turnips, shaky, white, half pulled from the earth. But he walked into the field. The golden warmth recognized him. The soil firmed under his boots, giving him solid footing while the elites sank deeper. "I just wanted to grow turnips," Kael said, more to himself than to Vask. "That's all. I filed so many requests for leave. I never wanted the fortress. I never wanted the war." Vask threw his flail. The chain whistled, but the mud had already reached his forearm. The weapon fell short, splashing into a furrow. Kael stared at the phone. The screen showed a new prompt, gentle and encouraging. "Your farm is safe. Build a cozy house to permanently reduce enemy aggro in this zone." Permanently reduce enemy aggro? He did not know what that meant. Could a house calm Vask? Could it turn the elites into something else, the way the fortress had become a cottage? The idea terrified him. But Vask was still shouting curses, still trying to free himself, and the riders were reaching for crossbows. Kael tapped, "Build cozy house." He did not specify where. The app chose. A pixelated blueprint appeared over the field, right between Vask and the tree line. The ground there was already clearing itself, stones rolling aside, roots untangling. The phone grew warm in Kael's hands. Then, with a sound like a drawn breath, the world shifted. The mud around Vask and the riders hardened into flagstone paths. The nightmare Mara's burning hooves went still, their smoke turning to steam. The black iron armor on the riders did not vanish, but it seemed to fade, becoming less like war metal and more like weathered farm iron. The cottage's fence extended, wrapping around the new plot. A small stone house rose from the earth, neat and quiet, with a mossy roof and a chimney already trailing wood smoke. The riders sat on the ground, blinking, their weapons half buried in the soil like rusted yard tools. Vask stood. The mud released him. He looked down at himself, at the. Kael's breath caught in his throat as the figure on the ridge above the valley raised her blazing longsword. The blade burned with a cold silver fire, casting long shadows that danced across the flagstone path leading to his newly built cottage. Behind him, the nightmare Maras of Vask's Black Harvest Squadron stood hip-deep in root-woven mud, their riders slumped in their saddles as though the very aggression had been drained from their bones. Vask himself still clutched a broken flail, his scarred face twisted in a mixture of fury and bewilderment. The hunting horn's last echo faded into the evening air, and now only the soft hum of the phone in Kael's palm filled the silence. The hero stood motionless, her silver armor gleaming with runes that pulsed gently in the dying light. Her hair was the color of pale ash, bound back in a warrior's knot, and her eyes swept the valley with the cold precision of a predator counting prey. She did not move toward the mud-trapped demons. She did not even glance at the cottage. Her gaze locked onto Kael, a lone demon standing in a turnip field, holding a shimmering rectangle of glass and light. "Where is the demon army?" Her voice carried down the slope, hard as an axe blade on stone. "I was told I would find a fortress overflowing with filth. A legion to purge. Instead, I find this garden and a single coward." Kael swallowed. The phone's screen glowed softly, the notification, "Visitor approaching," still pulsing in gentle green letters. His thumb hovered over the icons below it: clear monster spawner, upgrade farmland, build cozy house. None of them seemed designed for a confrontation with a human champion wielding a holy blade. He had already used all three just to survive Vask's ambush, and now the world was a patchwork of his own accidental design. The cottage behind him had smoke curling from its chimney. The field stretched in neat rows of leafy turnips. The fortress that had once stood here was gone, as though it had never existed. Well. The hero took a step down the ridge, her boots crunching on loose gravel. "Speak, demon, before I decide you're not worth the sword." Kael forced his shoulders to relax. He raised one hand slowly, the phone still cradled in the other. "I'm not with the army," he said, and the words tasted like ash. "I'm retired." The hero laughed, a short, humorless bark. Retired? Demons don't retire. They die or they serve. Which is it? She descended another few paces, her sword never wavering. The silver fire around the blade intensified, hissing where it touched the air. But maybe you're not lying about the army. I see no fortress. I see no legion. I see only a handful of broken elites and one trembling deserter. Kael glanced at Vask and his riders. They were still alive, still conscious, but the mud had risen to their thighs, and the nightmare Mares had stopped struggling. Vask's flail lay half buried, its chain rusted through. The man's eyes, once burning with purpose, now looked dazed, as though he had woken from a long and terrible dream to find himself in a stranger's garden. They came to kill me, Kael said quietly. Sent by the demon lord. I did not summon them. They wanted to drag me back or leave my corpse for the crows. The hero tilted her head. And yet here you stand, unbloodied, while they rot in the earth. That does not look like a victim. That looks like a trap. She took another step, and the ground beneath her boot shifted. A weed burst through the soil, then another, until a small patch of clover and wildflowers erupted around her ankles. She paused, her eyes widening for a fraction of a second before narrowing again. What sorcery is this? Kael felt the phone grow warm in his grip. He had not tapped anything. The app seemed to respond to his fear, his desperate desire for the hero to stop. The fields around him trembled, and with a soft rustle, a low stone wall began to rise from the earth between him and the approaching champion. It was not a fortress wall, but a garden wall, moss-covered and dotted with pink blossoms. A wooden gate swung shut with a gentle creak, its hinges sprouting tiny green leaves. The hero halted. Her sword came up, the silver fire flaring. You think a wall of flowers will stop me? She brought the blade down in a single, fluid arc. The holy edge sliced through stone as though it were soft bread, sending shards and petals flying. The wall crumbled, and she stepped through the gap, her boots crushing the fallen blossoms into the mud. Kael stumbled backward, his back pressing against the cottage's warm stone exterior. He had nowhere left to run. Vask let out a weak, gurgling laugh from the mud pit. Go on, hero, the commander croaked. Kill the traitor. But the demon lord will flay you for trespassing in his domain. The hero did not even turn. The demon lord will flay no one when I'm done with this land. Her gaze stayed locked on Kael, her silver eyes burning with a righteous hunger. But first, I will leave no demon breathing. Starting with you, deserter. She lunged. Kael's thumb moved without his conscious command. He tapped the middle icon, upgrade farmland, and the soil between him and the hero erupted in a riot of green. Thick, leafy turnip tops burst from the ground, their roots swelling so fast they cracked the earth. Vines snaked upward, not to entangle her but to create a dense, waist-high tangle of vegetation. The hero's boot caught on a thick root, and she stumbled, her sword swinging wide and carving a smoking furrow through a patch of cabbages. Stop! Kael heard himself shout. I don't want to fight you. I don't want to fight anyone. The hero steadied herself, her face twisted in fury. She ripped her foot free, tearing through the vines with brute strength. The turnip leaves wrapped around her greaves, slowing her but not stopping her. You think this garden trick, will save you? She raised the long sword high, and the silver fire around the blade became a blinding corona. I have slain abominations that could level mountains. A few weeds will not. She stopped. Her eyes, for the first time since she had appeared on the ridge, left Kael's face and swept across the valley. The field stretched from the cottage to the far tree line, every row bursting with vegetables. The nightmare Mares, once frothing war beasts bred for bloodshed, now cropped peacefully at the clover around their hooves. The mud pit had softened into rich, dark soil, and Vask's riders sat slack-jawed, their weapons rusted into useless lumps. Even the wind had changed, carrying the scent of fresh thyme and turned earth instead of brimstone and iron. The hero's sword lowered a fraction. What have you done? She whispered. This place, it was a fortress. I saw the maps. I read the scout reports. There was a garrison here. Hundreds of demons. Where did they go? Kael lowered his hands. The phone's screen glowed brighter, the notification now replaced by a simple map of the valley, every inch rendered in soft greens and browns. No red markers. No enemy icons. Just a peaceful realm. I don't know, he admitted. I was just trying to clear some rocks. Plant some crops. Build a cottage. I thought it was a game. A way to relax after all the fighting. He looked at the phone, then back at her. But it changed everything. The fortress is gone because I built this cottage where it stood. The army is gone because I cleared what I thought was a monster spawner. The wasteland is fertile because I upgraded the farmland. I didn't mean to be a god, hero. I just wanted turnips. The hero stared at him for a long, breathless moment. Then she threw back her head and laughed, a real laugh, ragged and disbelieving. A demon who wanted turnips. And in wanting turnips, he erased an entire garrison. She shook her head, the silver fire around her sword dimming to a low flicker. You expect me to believe that? Believe what you want, Kael said wearily. I'm tired of killing. I'm tired of serving a master who treats me like a disposable tool. I'm tired of being hunted by heroes who see me as nothing but experience points. I just want to live quietly. He gestured at the cottage, the garden, the peaceful fields. This is all I ever wanted. And now I have it. Except that both the demon lord and you are here to destroy it. The hero's jaw tightened. She took a step forward, then another, her boots crushing the turnip vines with deliberate intent. The sword came up again, its point aimed directly at Kael's heart. Even if what you say is true, you are still a demon. And I have sworn to destroy every demon in this world. Your wants, your tiredness, your little garden, none of it changes what you are. She lunged. Kael's hand moved again. He did not think. He did not choose. He simply reacted, his thumb slamming down on the bottom icon, build cozy house, and the cottage behind him shuddered. A burst of warm lie. Chapter_title, The Red Warning Blooms, content, the blade's edge rested just above Kael's pulse, close enough that every heartbeat sent a faint warmth into the steel. The hero did not tremble. Her silver gauntlet gleamed with runes that pulsed in time with the longsword's flame, and her eyes, pale gray, cold as river stones, watched him with the unblinking patience of an executioner. Behind her, the valley lay in impossible bloom, clover and wild turnip shoots pushing through soil that had been black cinder a day ago. A cottage with a thatched roof smoked gently from its chimney. There were no battlements. No bone towers. No garrison horns, /n/n Kael swallowed. The phone in his hand was still open to Cozy Realm, its cheerful green interface now stained by a crimson warning banner. 3 minutes. She had given him 3 minutes before the demon lord's reinforcements arrived. The banner pulsed, multiple hostile signatures approaching from the northern ridge, /n/n Vask's voice came from the mud pit, syrupy with glee. Kael. Oh, this is beautiful. The hero, the deserter, and about 200 executioners marching in from the north. Are you going to tap your little farming game now? Turn the hill into a pumpkin patch. /n/n Kael did not look at him. He focused on the sky beyond the hero's shoulder, where the ridge line had begun to darken. Not with clouds. With movement, /n/n, I am not an illusion, he said. I was the commander of the 4th Vanguard. I held the obsidian approach for 11 years. I burned out. I stole a phone from a dead merchant and thought I'd found a farming game. He lifted the phone. But every action in this app rewrites the world. That cottage? I built it as a little cozy house. It erased my fortress. The turnips? I upgraded a wasteland. The demon army? I cleared what I thought was a monster spawner. /n/n the hero's sword did not move. So you are either a liar or a reality-warping demon. Both are reasons to kill you. /n/n, I'm a deserter. I want turnips. Kael forced the panic from his voice. And I can prove it before your 3 minutes are up. /n/n the hero's lip curled. Prove it without moving from this spot. If your fingers so much as tap that screen, I will take your hand. /n/n Kael let out a breath. His mind raced through the app's menus, searching for something that would not provoke her. A dead patch of ground lay between them, trampled by their fight, scarred by her holy fire. He pointed at it. There. One tap. I'll upgrade that strip of farmland. Just that strip. If it turns into something other than living crops, you can kill me. /n/n the hero's eyes narrowed, but she gave the slightest nod. Do not move your feet. /n/n Kael's thumb found the upgrade farmland button. The app showed a tiny illustrated field with cracked soil and wilted leaves. He tapped it. The phone chimed, and the sound was too warm for a battlefield, more like a wind chime hung on a porch in summer. The ground in front of them shuddered. The black, compacted earth broke apart. Pale green shoots pushed upward in rows, then thickened, then burst into broad leaves and pale, fat turnips. The air filled with the clean, mineral scent of fresh-turned soil. A few small white flowers opened near the edge of the patch, trembling in the breeze, and the hero flinched, but she did not strike. She stared at the turnips, then at the phone, then back at the turnips. Her sword lowered a fraction of an inch. That is not demonic magic, she said, more to herself than to Kael. It doesn't burn. It doesn't rot. /n, it's not magic, Kael said. It's a reality editor. And right now, it's telling me something else. He tilted the phone so she could see the screen. The red warning had expanded into a small top-down map of the valley, showing a black tangle of icons clustered along the northern ridge. Beneath the cluster, a single green button had appeared, clear monster spawner, /n Kael's stomach lurched. Of course. The app didn't see an army. It saw a monster spawner. It always saw them that way. The last time he had tapped that button, he'd been clearing rocks from a field. Half a legion had simply stopped existing. He had not understood then. Now he did, and the knowledge sat in his chest like a swallowed stone, /n, the army you fought yesterday doesn't exist, Kael said, because I erased them by accident. Right now, the app is offering me a button that will erase the approaching force. If I do it, it won't be bloodshed. There won't be bodies. There will just be grass. /n the hero's gaze flickered toward the ridge. For the first time, uncertainty crossed her face. And if it's a trick, you summon something worse. /n, if it's a trick, Kael said, you can still kill me. I'm not running. /n Vask cackled from the mud. He'll run. He always runs. He used to file March requisitions in triplicate because he was too afraid to speak to the war council. The point is, hero, he's a coward. Kill him now and save us all the trouble. /n the hero ignored Vask. The flames along her sword flickered. Do it. Erase them. But if one demon reaches this valley, I will open you from throat to spine before you can explain. /n Kael's thumb hovered over the button. The wind changed. He could smell them now, copper, old blood, and the faint acrid tang of demon fire. War horns sounded from the northern ridge, low and resonant. He saw their banners, tall curves of black iron with red cords whipping in the mountain wind. The front ranks crested the rise. Silver blades. Red eyes, /n Vask hooped. There they are. Praise the burning throne. /n Kael tapped clear monster spawner, /n the phone vibrated once, not like a machine, but like a purring animal. A soft chime rang out, too sweet for the valley. The screen brightened with green and gold radiance, spilling over his fingers and onto the trampled grass. The app displayed a simple animation, a little hand in a gardening glove plucking a black thorny root from the earth and tossing it into a woven basket, /n then the world answered, /n the pressure in Kael's ears dropped, as if the sky had opened a door. The war horns cut off mid-note. The banners on the ridge sagged, their black iron frames folding like wilted flowers. The front rank of demon soldiers did not scream. Their forms unraveled from the edges inward, like ink spreading in water. Armor plates fell empty, but before they struck the ground, even the armor dissolved into pale dust and was carried away by the wind. The red of their eyes blinked out, one by one, until the ridge was only gray stone and yellow wildgrass, /n the second rank never crested the rise. The map on the phone showed the black tangle of icons scattering, then thinning, then vanishing. A small green message appeared beneath the button, monster spawner cleared. Enjoy your cozy realm, /n Kael lowered the phone. His hands were shaking. The hero had taken half a step back, her sword still raised, but no longer aimed at his throat. Her eyes scanned the empty ridge. She was breathing hard, not from exertion, but from the sheer wrongness of what she had just witnessed, /n, what did you do? Her voice was barely above a whisper. There was no spell. No demonic sigil. No element. They simply stopped. /n, I told you, Kael said. I cleared them. Like rocks from a field. /n Vask made a strangled sound from the mud. You monster. You didn't even let them bleed. That's worse. That's such a demon thing to do. /n Kael turned to him. You've been gloating for 10 minutes. You don't get to call anyone a monster. /n the hero did not lower her weapon entirely. She kept the point toward Kael's chest, but her grip shifted. If this is real, if that phone truly rewrites reality, then the demon lord will come himself. He will not send another legion. He will burn this valley to bedrock. /n Kael looked at the screen. The cheerful green fields and tiny cottage remained. The red warning banner had not returned, but the app was already opening a new window on its own. A single line of text scrolled across the top, /n warning, primary threat approaching from beyond the northern ridge, /n beneath the words, a shadow stretched across the map, long and jagged, with 2 points like horns, /n the hero saw it. Her face went pale. That is not reinforcements, she said. That is him. /n Kael's throat tightened. The phone grew warm in his hand, almost eager. On the screen, a second button appeared, small and gray, beneath the shadow, /n clear monster spawner, /n but this time, the button was locked, /n I can't erase him, Kael murmured. He's not just a spawner. He's the whole corrupted save file. /n the hero stared at him. Then we are both dead unless you learn to use that thing. /n above the ridge, the sky began to darken, and the first cold wind of the demon lord's coming rolled into the valley, killing the wildflowers at Kael's feet. Summary, Kael remains at the hero's mercy, given 3 minutes to convince her N. Chapter_title, The Turnip Field and the White Cloak. Content, the turnip greens shivered in the wind, but Kael did not feel the cold. He sat on a low stone wall at the edge of what had once been the fortress's eastern killing field, now a patchwork of dark furrows and tiny green shoots. The phone lay in his lap, its screen bright enough to wash his hands in pale blue light. He had not dared to tap anything for 6 hours, /n the hamlet behind him was quiet in the way that only recently peaceful places could be. A few former garrison soldiers, now dressed in rough homespun, repaired a thatch roof. The scent of wood smoke and rising bread curled through the air. Kael could hear the distant cluck of chickens and the slow creak of a well rope. It was everything he had ever wanted. It was also a lie waiting to collapse, /n na black shape appeared above the chimney smoke. At first Kael thought it was a crow. Then it banked, and he saw the leathery wings, the barbed tail, the tarnished brass message tube clutched in one claw. A scout imp. His stomach dropped, /n the app screen flickered. On the map, a small red icon pulsed exactly where the creature flew, monster spawner, minor. Kael's thumb moved toward it before his mind caught up. The scout shrieked, and its voice was high and cruel, carrying over the fields, /n by order of the demon lord, General Kael is declared forfeit. His blood price is 10,000 soul shards, /n the imp swooped low over the square. Chickens scattered. Villagers who had once been demon soldiers dug behind barrels and haystacks. Marnie, the camp cook who had become a baker overnight, pressed her floury hands to her mouth, /n Kael's heart pounded in his chest. The old dread rose, the burned-out, bone-deep exhaustion of a mid-boss who had spent too many years cowering before an egomaniacal lord. Every message from the obsidian spire felt like another demand for overtime, another impossible quota of souls, another public humiliation. But this time, his thumb did not shake, /n he pressed, clear monster spawner, on the scout imp's icon, /n the phone chimed, warm and friendly, like a bell made of sunlight. A tiny cloud of pixel dust puffed across the screen, /n the square, the imp's shriek stopped mid-note. The creature did not fall. It did not explode. It simply ceased to have ever been there. The brass tube clattered onto the cobblestones, rolled, and came to rest against a newly whitewashed fence. Where the imp had been, a small ceramic garden gnome now stood, smiling with painted cheeks and a pointed red hat, /n Kael stared at it. The phone's map showed no red icon. Instead, a small spinning windmill had appeared where the old watchtower used to be. A pop-up glowed in soft green letters /cozy progress +1. Keep going, /n Marnie crossed herself with a trembling hand. Bless the quiet one, she whispered, and Kael wanted to say that he was not blessing anything. He was just clearing monster spawners. But the app had already rewritten the world, and explanations felt pointless, and the hero arrived at noon, and Kael was kneeling between rows of turnips, trying to ignore the blue glow in his pocket. The hamlet's only road ran straight through the fields, and along it came a column of dust. Sunlight flashed on polished steel. Kael's stomach tightened. He knew that armor. It belonged to the hero, the human one who filed each demon kill like a tax return. The one who had once told a dying demon that his death was just experience points, nothing personal, and Kael pulled his hood lower. His horns, small and dark, pressed against the wool. He forced his hands into the soil, not the phone. The dirt was cool and damp, and it grounded him. Behind him, the village had gone very still, and the hero rode at the head of 12 mounted knights. Their horses were huge, armored, breathing steam. The road, which Kael had not yet upgraded, was still rough and full of stones. The hero's horse stumbled once, then righted itself. A knight called out, this is the place. A fortress stood here yesterday, my lord, and the hero reined in. His face was clean-shaven, his eyes calm and blue. He wore a white cloak over silver plate, and his sword hilt was wrapped with red leather worn smooth by years of gripping. He looked at the fields, the cottages, the weather vane shaped like a rooster, it seems, the hero said, intelligence was wrong, he dismounted. His boots crunched on gravel. Unless the demons are hiding in the turnips, and no one laughed, and the hero walked between the furrows. He was smiling, but it did not reach his eyes. Good folk, I am the hero. Fear not. I have come to slay the demon General Kael. He was last seen commanding this fortress. Where is he, and the silence stretched. Kael could feel the phone vibrating against his thigh. The app was sending him a notification, but he did not dare look, and the hero's smile did not waver. He drew a small knife from his belt, not the red-hilted sword, but a paring knife. He knelt by a turnip, sliced off a pale sliver, and ate it. Delicious, he said. Almost unnaturally sweet. As if grown in soil blessed by something unholy, and he turned to Marnie. You. Tell me where the demon is, and I will spare this village. Refuse, and I will consider you all tainted, and Marnie's chin trembled. Her flower-streaked apron caught the wind, and Kael's palm itched. The phone was hot now. He slid it out, keeping it low behind his thigh. The screen was on. A new notification glowed, unwelcome guest detected. Would you like to make things cozier? And below it, 2 large buttons, upgrade farmland, and, build cozy house, and the hero grabbed Marnie by the collar. I am losing patience. The sun is high, and I have not killed anything today, and Kael's vision narrowed. The old Kael, the mid-boss who would have bowed, apologized, offered the demon lord's head on a plate just to avoid another shift, was dead. This Kael planted turnips. This Kael had a phone that could change the world, and he tapped, upgrade farmland, on the road where the night Saturday, and the phone chimed, and for one heartbeat, nothing happened, and then the road erupted with green. Wild rye, clover, and sweet pea vines burst from the packed earth. The knotted roots of 1,000 forgotten plants untangled beneath the horse's hooves. The road buckled upward, not as a trap, but as a gentle, living wave. Hooves slipped. Saddles tilted. Knights shouted as their mounts staggered and knelt, not thrown, but forced to slow. The horses whinnied, confused by the sudden meadow blooming beneath them, and the hero's head snapped toward the field. His eyes locked on Kael's hood, on the faint outline of horns pressing against the wool, you, he said, and Kael stood. The phone's screen showed the road had become a winding garden path, lined with honeysuckle and lavender. The mounted knights were dismounted, tangled in sweet vines and cursing, me, Kael said. His voice came out steady. That surprised him, and the hero's lips pulled back. Backslash demon backslash backslash n backslash n backslash retired demon backslash backslash n backslash and the hero dropped Marnie. He drew the red-hilted sword, and the sound it made coming out of the scabbard was like a child's sigh. Backslash, there is no retirement for your kind. Only death. Or undeath. Or both, if I'm creative. Backslash backslash n backslash n. Kael raised the phone. Backslash, I don't want to fight you. I just want to grow turnips. Backslash backslash n backslash n backslash, then you should have stayed in hell. Backslash backslash n backslash and the hero charged. Backslash n backslash n. Kael's thumb found, build cozy house. He did not aim at the hero. He aimed at the old well in the center of the square, which the app had marked with a tiny broken house icon for days. He tapped it. Backslash n backslash and there was a soft, deep sound, like a giant exhaling in its sleep. Backslash n backslash and the well stones folded inward, then outward. Timber beams rose from the earth, fitted themselves together with the precision of 1,000 invisible carpenters. A shingled roof unfurled like a blossom. The well became a small, perfect cottage, complete with a green door, 2 round windows, and a stone chimney. Smoke already rose from the chimney. Backslash n between the hero and Kael, the cottage now stood. Backslash n and the hero did not stop. He did not even flinch. He simply veered around the cottage, sword low, moving with the grace of someone who had run down 100 demons. Backslash n Kael stumbled backward. The phone chimed again. A new button pulsed at the bottom of the screen, clear monster spawner. Backslash n but the hero was not a monster spawner. Backslash n Kael's mind raced. The app could clear monster spawners, upgrade farmland, build cozy houses. It could not delete people. Could it? No. It could not. But it could build. Backslash n the hero closed the distance. His sword came up in a wide, killing arc. Backslash n Kael threw himself sideways into the turnip field. He hit the ground hard and rolled, crushing tiny green leaves. Dirt filled his mouth. The phone flew from his hand and landed a few feet away, screen down. Backslash n and the hero's sword bit th. Chapter 10 Content Summary.